Do you know that a large percentage of people out there looking for work are over the age of 40? We believe that anyone at any age can get a job.
But what we've heard loud and clear the past couple of weeks in our comments on some of our videos is a lot of people looking for work don't even feel like their resume gets looked at by a recruiter, much less by our hiring manager. So we're going to go through some things that get you maybe a leg up on getting past that recruiter or the automated software and at least getting farther along in the process and maybe getting that new job or the dream job that you've always wanted. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Robbie.
And I'm Rich, and you found our channel before it's too late.
If you watched our most recent video, I shared with you that last week, out of the blue, I was fired from my nursing position at the age of 56. Once I got over the shock and disbelief of this, Rich and I have now begun looking at ways that I can make myself more marketable.
So yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next couple of videos we do. And today we're just going to start off with how do you get past the recruiter and maybe the automated software that they might be using in those online application places. And we're hoping we're going to help some people. And we're going to actually live it because Robbie's going to be doing these things as we move forward. So if you get anything from this video that you find useful, it'd be great if you'd hit the like button and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you know when we put out the next one. Also, it'd be great if you leave a comment. If you have some tips for people that we don't talk about in this video, it'd be great to get those out there so other people that find themselves in this situation can maybe learn from those as well. So the first thing we want to touch on briefly is a LinkedIn profile, whether you have one or not. Now, I'm a hiring manager myself. I've done some hiring since I've been in this job and before, and I can tell you from experience that for certain types of jobs, for sure, a LinkedIn profile is something that you want to have. It shows a lot of things. It shows that you have a network out there of people that are in your profession that you've connected with over time. And it also shows that you have some, at least a little bit of technological skill to be able to make a profile.
I did go ahead just within the last couple of days, and I had a LinkedIn profile, but it was definitely due for some major overhaul. So I have made some updates to that, and just kind of looked at it a little bit more, paying a little bit more attention to it, cleaned it up a little bit, got my resume on there, did the things that I think I needed to do.
Right. And I think one of the things you got to remember about LinkedIn is it feels like a social media platform,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not really. I mean, it is, but I don't want you to treat it like that. Like, don't post things on there about your personal political beliefs, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or don't rant and rave about your last job that you got terminated from. That's not what a new prospective employer wants to see. They just want to look at there and see if you're presenting yourself in a professional way.
Yeah.
So go in there, make sure that it's up to date. And if you don't have one, I suggest that you get one and or make one, and then get yourself familiar with how LinkedIn works. There are some paid for services within LinkedIn. I don't think they're necessary. They're not necessarily necessary, but you may want to take a look at those depending on what you're actually looking for and if you think they'll help.
The second thing that we're going to talk about, and we're going to spend a lot of time on today, is the resume. I pulled mine out, took a look at it, dusted it off, and realized that I needed to make some significant changes.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the opening, there's a term out there called Botoxing your resume, and that basically applies to people that have been in the workforce for a while. So, in, let's say 40s, 50s, and 60s, and it's really about making your resume so that it doesn't immediately scream, this is an older person hiring or applying for this job. So let's start at the top.
Yeah.
If you start at the top, everybody knows you're going to have your name at the top of the resume. What you don't need to have anymore is your physical address.
Which I had mine on there.
Yeah. In today's day and age, number one, you're not going to apply for a job unless you would move to that location to take the job, or you're only applying for jobs that are local to where you are already. So it's not important to the hiring company where you live.
Mm-hmm.
instead of having your physical address on there, put your email address on there, and then your LinkedIn profile address. And again, that's going to demonstrate to them that you are at least somewhat technologically savvy enough to know that that kind of URL address is something that someone can go to find out more about you.
Right. And in the past, on my old resume, right away, I had like an objective statement. That is something that no longer people don't look at. It's more important to have what I guess I would call a highlights section. And it basically highlights the skills that I have that are pertinent to the job that I am applying for. And I think one thing that Rich, when we were looking at this, one thing Rich pointed out to me is that that section, those highlight section, that should be something that should be moldable and changeable. And you need to tweak it to whatever job you are applying for.
Yeah, all the jobs that you're going to look at, they have a desired qualification section or something like that. So when you're looking at those and you think, yeah, that I could do that, those are the things that you want in that highlight section.
Right.
Like point out how you meet those qualifications right at the top of your resume and make sure that you're changing it for each job that you're applying for. Again, and I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it's like if you submit a resume to a company that either the recruiter or eventually the hiring manager looks at and said, he didn't even put in the stuff that we asked for, they know that you're just mass emailing out this resume.
Right.
And you're just hoping for someone to grab the hook.
Take a bite. That's right.
Right. So tailor that section specifically to what they've asked for in the qualification section.
Yeah. I think another thing too, as I've gone through this and fine tweaked my resume, I've learned that in the past, I've always put all of my experience. A big bulk of my experience was spent with one company for many, many, many years. And so I always wanted to point that out. But in doing that, it also then makes me seem very old.
Right. And in today's day and age, the employers are really only looking back for like about the last 10 years of your experience. And I've talked to the recruiters that work for the company that I'm currently with, and they back me up on this. They're really concerned about kind of what have you done lately, right? And yeah, you may have a great level of experience that's 20 years ago, but that just led you to whatever you're doing right now or whatever you just left. And that's what they care about. Like, what were you doing then? What kind of steps have you taken to keep yourself current, keep yourself ready for the next position? So don't go back that far.
Right. And I think on focusing on your most recent experience, you want to make sure you detail what you did at those jobs. And then when you get to your experience past 10 years, that maybe can just be summarized in a bullet point or a simple statement of further information about past experience or past jobs
is available. Right. Yeah. And again, when you're thinking about what you're putting on there for experience, it's great to have your where you work and what you did and your job title and that. But if you've been with the same company for a long time, it's really important to demonstrate how you changed within that company. Like the different positions you held. That shows that you're not stagnant and that you were continuing to try to learn, even though you already had a job. You were trying to improve yourself the whole time, and you weren't just sitting in one place, doing. I don't want to say doing nothing, but just happy with where you're sitting.
Right.
That shows them that you're ready to take the next step, and maybe it's with them.
Another tip that I also learned as I've kind of looked at redoing my resume is when you get to the education part of the resume, I always put the year that I obtained my degree. Again, I have learned by looking at things to remove that date. Just put what my degree was in, what my education was in, where it was at, and that's enough. There's no other detail that really needs to go with that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, from a hiring manager standpoint, I'm a lot of times able to look at a resume and say, I know this guy is 50 something because he's got his high school graduation date on there.
Yeah.
Not that it would matter necessarily, but if you're thinking that the jobs that you're applying for are looking for younger people, don't give them a reason right away to throw your resume in the trash.
Right.
So one more thing about the body of your resume. when you're describing your experience and you're describing the different things you do, use words that are searchable for, by recruiters or by the automated software. And words I'm talking about are things like highly energetic or motivated, things that show that you are out there trying to better yourself again.
Right.
Don't use words like seasoned.
Well seasoned.
Yeah, that just says, it screams old, right? So, if that's something that you feel is holding you back, make sure that you're not giving them any reason right away, again, to think this person is well seasoned. So kind of related to your resume, but not really, is the idea of a cover letter. So a cover letter was meant to be a way for you to highlight your traits that are fitting to the company that you're applying for. It goes back to a day where you made your resume, you printed off a ton of copies and you had them in a folder. And when you saw a job that you wanted to apply for, you went in, you handed them a copy of your resume and a cover letter, right? And today, that's just not the way it's done anymore.
Right.
Almost every job is going to be applied for online. So the cover letter is just a way to scream, I'm old.
Yeah. It was a way back then to personalize it.
Right.
But now when you do it, it says I'm old.
So again, it goes back to, instead of a cover letter, make sure that that statement that you have at the beginning where you talk about how motivated you are, and then that highlight section is tailored to the job that you're applying for. That way you don't need a cover letter.
Right.
As a hiring manager, I'm not saying that a cover letter is bad when I see it, but I very seldom read it. I mean, honestly, I seldom read them, and the recruiter said the same thing. They very seldom look at a cover letter.
Yeah, and I think then moving on from the resume, essentially then what do? Apply everywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, anything that you think you might fit or that interests you, apply. And don't get all cut up in your feelings when you don't hear back or when you get a letter saying we've moved on, whatever. Just carpet bomb your applications out there. And I mean, I'm not saying apply for stuff that you don't want.
Right.
But, it's not, there's no harm in putting the application out there, because it's literally just a couple of tweaks on the resume and hit send.
Right.
And it's out there. It's not like you got to drive to all these places and drop off an application.
Right.
And
go ahead.
You remember, and companies advertise the jobs in a wide variety of ways. Like one company's senior manager is another company's vice president.
Right.
So just because the title seems like it's not what you want or above you or below you, you can always turn it down later when when you get to the point of somebody offers you a job and it's not what you want. Don't be shy about turning it down because you're like, I wanted more responsibility than that, or that's way too much for me. But again, what they're listing out there for the job title, it means very little. It's more important to look at the qualifications, see if you fit, see if it's something that you want to do, and why not apply?
And I think a perfect example of that is, we did put out a video a few weeks ago, which many of you commented on, and thank you for that. And that was the video about the experience we went through several years ago when Rich was fired at the age of 54, and how we went about going through that. And ironically, the job that he applied for and ended up eventually taking was a job that he just was like, okay, send. Really didn't think it was going to fit. Didn't think that there was going to be appropriate salary with it. Really didn't think there was any chance. And God opened the doors, and it worked out perfect. So that's just an example of cast your net everywhere. Go after it.
Right. And I'll give you an example of the ways that we as seasoned workers kind of hurt ourselves on occasion. Number one, as a hiring manager, or if you're a hiring manager and watching this, be real and say, I'm going to take a look at everybody based on their qualifications, right? And then on the other side of that, if you're out there looking for a job and you're like me or in our age bracket somewhere, if you don't want that job, really don't take it. I had an experience with an employee that I hired. I actually had a conversation with my boss about, boy, he seems overqualified, but he told me, I'm ready to do these things. I'm ready to kind of step back and be kind of the worker bee again. But then once he got in, that just wasn't true. So when that happens, that kind of throws all of us under the bus, right? That put a bad taste in my mouth that I have to overcome when I'm looking at resumes. So don't be that person either. Like if you get to the point where you're getting hired and you know this isn't a job that you really want, be upfront, be honest, and say, this one's not for me. So one last thing, I guess point number 4, if you want to go that way, is do some follow-up. Like if you've got past the initial call with the recruiter, you haven't yet maybe got an interview or whatever, but the recruiter reached out to you and said, I need a little more information. And you did that. So you know somebody, a specific person at that company that you can reach out for, do that. And I actually got this piece of advice from a recruiter. Find the recruiter on LinkedIn and send them a message saying, whatever, it's been a week, I'm just inquiring about how the process is going, if you guys have moved on or whatever. And the recruiter told me that he is way more likely to recommend a person who reaches out to him checking in than he is someone who doesn't. And again, that's because he knows that they at least were computer savvy enough to find them on LinkedIn. They took the time to find them on LinkedIn, and then they sent him a message saying, just how are things? So don't be afraid to do that. Again, the worst that happens is you never hear back.
Right.
And what we have to get over in our age group is
rejection
and just kind of the feeling that if we gave you the time and you offer us a job, we're committed to it. Not necessarily true. Or if we took the time to reach out extra to you, that means we really want this. That might not be true either. Right. Just do the things to keep your application at the top of their pile, or at least keep you in front of them as long as you can.
So there's a few tips from LinkedIn profile to your resume to all those other things that we talked about today that I am implementing real time before you in my journey to try and find a new job.
Yeah, so we're going to try to keep this up. And again, we really would like some comments. I'm sure there's things that we missed. There's probably recruiters that might see this and help us out. Leave a comment. Let us know some ways that we can better get past either the recruiter or the automated software, and at least get us to the point of the hiring manager taking a look. And we're planning to do another video in the coming weeks about, here's some tips to, once you do get that interview, how you can highlight the things that you bring to the table for this new company that would blow away any thought that they would have of, this person doesn't have enough runway for me to hire them, or something like that. So that's coming up in the future. So again, we hope that you like the video and that you will like the video, subscribe to our channel, and leave those comments. So we appreciate you taking the time to watch. Thanks for watching, and God bless.